Inside Thursday night, how's it going? Alright, strip back, good crack, multi-trade podcast. Share the knowledge you know, help to make our sector grow. Everybody's learning from experts and the journeyman. Insights.
Right, Keith, we're back for a bonus episode, one that rewinds the clock a little bit. It's a follow-up to our Season 5, Episode 5 interview that we done with Robin Grace. He is a member of An Garda Síochána who had a very hard-hitting and inspirational story to tell regarding mental health and suicide. One that, you know, hit heavy with our listeners. We got a lot of good feedback about it, and a lot of people were very thankful for Robin to share that story and put his emotions out there on the table. But today, Robin has had a bit of an update in regards to his journey in trying to raise awareness around potentially using a geofence technology and application that could potentially save lives in the area that he lives and works in. So really interested in getting Robin on to hear more about that.
No, 100%. As he said himself, it's a recap and, you know, an update on the situation. And you look, it passed through our WhatsApp messages and it was too good to turn down to get him back on. So really looking forward to getting into the chat with him.
Yeah, without further ado, we've got Robin Grace on the podcast sharing a really, really important bit of information.
Let's jump into it.
This podcast is coming to you from the Robus headquarters in Dublin, Ireland.
Robus are the world's leading LED lighting company.
So make sure you head over and download the My Robus app and see what they have on offer. Robin, thanks for joining myself and Keith again on the podcast. It feels like it's been a while since we've had you just through seasons, but it hasn't been too long. Season 5, Episode 5. Got through a really, you know, hard-hitting story with you on that episode that I think we got a lot of good feedback from a lot of listeners who heard your story. So to have you back on again, giving us a bit of an update and an extension onto that episode is a pleasure. So thanks again for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, lads, again. It's an absolute pleasure. And to say that a lot has happened in the last, I think it's 6 months or 7 months since I've seen you last in studio on that. So just to kind of recap, the last time I was on with you, I was telling my own story about mental health and my own experience of suicide, and I suppose my thoughts on it. What I didn't tell you at the time that I couldn't really talk about was that we were in the throes of connecting with the Cliffs of Moher, because I had pitched the idea of a suicide intervention and prevention application via technology at the Cliffs in September of last year, and it went really great. And to give your listeners an update in your audience, I suppose a recap. The idea is that, and I'm a passionate, if nothing else, I'm a passionate mental health and suicide intervention and prevention advocate. And I bring myself to the table on my own story. So anybody that has listened to the previous episode, you'll know me from that. If you haven't, go back and have a listen, and you'll hear the whole story. We got deep the last time.
Season 5, Episode 5.
Yeah. So I suppose when you look at the landscape of mental health and positive mental health, and particularly suicide intervention and prevention, so there's an awful lot out there that we can do in the community. But one of the aspects that people struggle with is when they're actually in a suicide crisis, when they're contemplating suicide, is one of the kind of places we lack in really effective support. So what I pitched to the Cliffs of Moher back in September was, um, sorry, I must say just at this point, while I am a member of An Garda Síochána, sorry, I should have said this at the top of the show, um, but while I'm a member of Garda Síochána, what I'm about to talk about is my own personal opinions and experience, and separate from the organization. So I'm working on this in my private capacity. I just need to make that clear. But
Yep.
so when somebody is in crisis
Yeah.
and
100%.
they're at a cliff edge and they're contemplating suicide, it's hard to get help to the person because they feel alone. Um, and if they're there and there's nobody else there, it can be hard for the person to actually get the help that they need. So the idea that we have is that we can use technology as a very effective intervention, using geofence technology, which is a virtual fence around a particular location. And using technology, we can push a notification onto somebody's phone and ask them directly if they need help. Um, and when I pitched this idea to the Cliffs of Moher, they really, really liked the idea. And they actually invited me to a
Yeah.
multi-agency team meeting where I again pitched the bigger idea and the bigger picture. And again, there was a lot of positive feedback from that. And that was in September. So roll on then a couple of months, and there was radio silence, unfortunately, to the end that they weren't really interested. Um, for multiple, maybe I'm not sure what reasons. They haven't explicitly said what the reasons were that they weren't really interested in this idea. Um, Only to say that they had some supports on site. Now, the supports that the Cliffs Moher have on site are fantastic. They have multiple staff, over 150 plus staff trained in suicide intervention and prevention, and they're doing an awful lot. And they do bring together other stakeholders, state agencies, An Garda Síochána, the HSE, the Samaritans, civil service, or civil defence, and the Coast Guard, among others, um, to evaluate how they can make the situation better, the location better and safer for people who might be struggling. Now, the only thing is that it's it's not explicitly said anywhere that those supports exist. And I'm here
Yeah.
with the sole intent, the number one intention why I'm talking to you lads tonight is open up this discussion, because I feel that if those supports do exist, and they do great work, is that if anybody, myself, yourselves, or our loved ones, or anybody in our community end up in that location, I think it's unfair that that person that's struggling doesn't know that there is actually incredible supports there. That's the number one thing that I want to open up, is that discussion
Mm.
there. Um,
Yeah.
and then to build on that and make it better. So I've approached a number of local newspapers to talk about this openly, and talking about the aspect of providing more suicide intervention, more mental health supports at the Cliffs Moor, because it's a particularly important location, in our society and in our community because of that. And as I understand it, is that Clare County Council own the Cliffs Moor. It is a private enterprise, but we're merely custodians of a very important location where people find themselves to be struggling. And I feel that uh, technology can really play an important part. And I actually just a little, I digress a tiny bit, that while I was waiting to come on the show with you tonight, I was scrolling through my Instagram, just um, looking for positive clips to watch, and I came across. Have you seen? There's some clips about showing up when kids are on stage or they're at a school show, and they're really really popular clips on social media at the moment. And I've seen a few of them,
Yeah.
and they're incredibly emotional, because the importance to a young kid when
Yeah.
they see their parents showing up
Mm. Yeah.
is it hits hard because the kid is looking, and then they see their parent or their guardian or their loved one, and they light up. It's so important. Now I
I only
want you to
sent I
imagine.
sent one. I only
Yeah.
sent one to my wife last week. They're hard hitting, like, just when you think you might not be doing enough, when you show up for a game, or in Stephen's case, a drama recital, and they look up and they see you there, like, it means the world for them. And I know where you're going with this as well, so I'll let you continue.
So imagine now you're on a cliff edge. How important and how powerful it is when somebody shows up for you.
Yeah.
It's immense.
Just
Um,
it's I'm just trying to think in myself, Robin. When you put those type of images into my mind, and obviously those images now are being put into our viewers and our listeners' minds, how we have lost our way as a society when it comes to profit over taking care of each other. And I think that's what it can come down to as well when it's the likes of these tourist destinations, not just the cliffs of Moher, but it can be other tourist destinations all around the world where they want to emphasize the importance of not promoting life-saving mental health services, although that there is a lot of good work going on in the background. I don't believe that subtle advertising in regards to these supports
It's a bad thing.
is a bad thing, because we definitely have lost our way as a society where people would think that somebody would not go and visit the Cliffs of Moher, or you might be highlighting the fact that a certain area in Ireland is a hotspot maybe for this type of awful situation. But it opens up a conversation. It opens up a discussion between all age groups. Between parents who are thinking about their own children growing up, who might end up, like you said, in that position, or children who might be looking at their parents who have gone through some struggles, who end up in that position, or loved ones who, or colleagues who might end up in that position. And to have a simple number or email address or direction towards a support or help is, I think, the basic amount of love and support that I think we can give each other as human beings.
Like, most of us will want to say, well, if only there was a contact there, or if only, like you're suggesting, a geofencing alert that might just pull someone back from the edge, you know what I mean? Or even a bot that, that could be asked a question, like, just to highlight how you're feeling at that moment,
yeah, I think any supports that we can think of are worth doing. They're worth somebody's life. And to say that it's not worth investigating, in my mind, seems unfair and unjust to our amazing community and amazing people that that might be struggling. Um, so I don't know if those decisions are being based on bottom lines and profit margins. All I can say is that time and time again, we find the conversations around suicide uncomfortable. But those conversations and suicide for somebody who's thinking about it, it's not just uncomfortable, it's painful. And for somebody who's bereaved by suicide, by somebody who took their own life, is also painful. So I think the least that we can do as a community is to sit with our discomfort and have the discussion anyway. So I think, in this day and age, we use technology for so much good. There's an awful lot of chatter about how, the negative side of communication and technology. But in my mind, when there's such amazing work being done, um, and such amazing communication being done in so many fields, that we can also apply it to, mental health. So to continue so I digress. I'll come back a little bit to where we were in the timeline of the update. That in January and February, I noticed that the Cliffs of Moher were getting an awful lot of pressure because some of their walkways have become unsafe, and there was a lot of publicity locally and nationally about some of the walkways that are now being closed for a number of years because of safety issues, because there have been incidents, whether it's accidents, or intentional, somebody taking their own lives. I'm unsure. The statistics aren't very clear in the media that I've read, but what is clear is that some of the walkways have become unsafe, and nowhere in the media that I've seen so far is a very explicit or open conversation about suicide. And to come
Mm.
back to one of your points, that the Cliffs of Moher is it's a frequently used location um, for suicide, but it's also one of the biggest, if not the biggest, tourist site in the country at 1.5 million visitors. Um, and it's a particularly important location for that reason alone, that it comes together
Yeah,
with those two very important, I suppose, uh, parts of society. It's a very important tourist destination, but it's also a very important location for somebody who is struggling. And the bigger picture is that we are just
yeah,
saying that we should test technology at this location to see if it actually helps people. And I think the testing is very, very important. So we're just looking for permission, or at least, and again, I'm just a person with an idea. My other intention of having this conversation is to bring other stakeholders and the rest of the community, the wider community, into the discussion, because I do believe that a collaborative effort will make the best solution possible. Um, so again, I understand that the uncomfortable conversation is to say that people do go to the Cliffs Moor to take their own lives. And what I'm understanding from some of the communications that I've had from the management there, that their worry is, and this again part of the open and transparent communication, is that the worry is that the minute you talk about it, that it will encourage more people to come to that location to take their own lives. And a kind of a worry about contagion. And while there is some literature and some data to suggest that contagion in suicide is a real documented phenomenon, um, my answer to this particular dilemma is that what better location for somebody, if they are struggling, that they end up at the Cliffs Moor, where they have 175 or 150 plus staff that are trained in suicide intervention and prevention. So they will get the support that they need. But we have to be explicit about it, and using technology to recognize when somebody is there and giving them the option of opening up that conversation themselves. So what we hope is that through technology, we can uh, interact with a geofence, again, a virtual fence around a particular location, in this case, the Cliffs Moor. And once a person goes on site, that the geofence will recognize that they're there, and we can ask the question, how are you feeling? And then the
yeah,
person gets an option of saying, green light, I'm good. Amber, I need to reach out to a friend or a family member. And red, I need emergency services. So this is about quick and effective support when somebody is in need. And the stepping stones to that. So how do we get there? How do we enable somebody to have this technology on their device? Because as I've learned through this journey of, I'm again, I'm not an expert in tech, but what I have learned is this: is that we have a couple of hurdles to get over as a society to get to there. Is one, how do we get somebody to download an app or engage with a website that is for mental health support when you're not in the mind frame to engage in anything like that if you are struggling? And if you're not struggling, do you want to be bombarded with something that isn't for you right there? So there's a couple of hurdles. How do you get someone to download an app? And second of all, how do you get them to engage on a daily basis so everybody in our society has it? And I thought this step would be fairly easy. Just go to the phone manufacturers. It's a big enough issue and get it put onto our handheld devices or our smartphones. Again, that's not the way it works. What you need to do is create something that we would use every day to increase our well-being or our mental health wellness. And then it
Yeah.
has a safety feature of a geofence. So the idea is that we almost akin to physical wearable or a physical wellness app, like Strava or Fitbit. Now that we're so comfortable and it's so normal for people to track their fitness and their physical wellness, now we need to move beyond that and say that we can track our mental health wellness. So how do we do that? So again, the coming back to the importance of a location like the Cliffs of Moher, they have 1.5 million visitors, and we don't need an app just yet. What we would like to do would be to piggyback on top of um, what's already there. And there's a
Yeah.
number of ways the person can engage. When they buy their ticket, they give their phone number, their online ticket to the Cliffs Moor. They give certain amount of details, and one of those is their phone number. And we can then ask, can we track your location while on site for safety reasons?
Yeah.
And then when they're on site, when you want to use your phone, because the internet coverage is so bad up there that very kindly the Cliffs Moor have used free Wi-Fi spots. So if you want to take out your phone, engage with social media or your phone, um, you engage with their free Wi-Fi. At that point, then we
Yeah.
are saying that we can test for a number of months. How are you feeling? If the person is feeling good, they're just brought to more wellness activities in the area, and if they're struggling, they're brought to more professional mental health supports at a click of a button. So this has been explicit. And I thought back when I was talking to you guys, this was the initial idea, and I thought, okay, there's a long way to go from where I am to providing supports. And
Yeah.
like I said, in January and February, the Cliffs Moor were under an awful lot of pressure, and there was no mention of suicide or anything of it. So I reached out to a local newspaper in Clare to see if they would like to cover the story about the the pitch of uh,
Yeah.
the app that I was suggesting. And we were going to go ahead with it, but 2 days before print, I got a phone call from my management in An Garda Síochána to say that the Cliffs Moor or Clare County Council had been in contact, that they had a number of concerns. To this day, I don't know what the concerns were, but in any case, I pulled the article. Since that has happened, I have gotten the support from An Garda Síochána, because what I needed to do before I speak to the media in any case is to get authorization before speaking to the media. That's in the Garda Code. So I've
Okay.
contacted the press office and have the support to talk about my idea, anything related to mental health, and be open and transparent about this discussion. So if we move on, I was keeping an eye on. Sorry, I'll reframe that. In April, I went on to the Cliffs of Moher website, and I noticed that they had an AI chatbot service. and I asked the question of the chatbot: if you are suicidal at the Cliffs of Moher, where can you get help? And the first time I asked the question, it said it was outside the scope of the service. A week later, I asked it the same question, and I got back an incredibly supportive answer. And it directed me towards staff on site, even though they weren't mental health professionals. They said they can assist, the Samaritans and emergency services. I thought this was a fantastic use of technology, and we've come so
Yeah.
far. And now there's that bridge between where we are and then getting to the eventual big picture of using technology at any location to help somebody when they're struggling. Didn't seem too far a jump. But unfortunately, a week later, I asked it the same question. So because I wanted my information to be updated, unfortunately, the service reverted back to this is outside the scope of our service right now. When I asked if you are suicidal at the Cliffs of Moher, where can I get help? And it
And I've
reverted
actually
back.
followed up on that, Robin. We had a private conversation, obviously, before you came on, and you mentioned this to ourselves, and myself and Keith done a bit of research on it as well during the week, just to get a bit of an idea of the limitations of the bot and the type of questions you can ask it. Like, and we went to the extent of, talking about, our mental health issues to the bot, and also mentioning, what would be the highest point of the cliff, along with the question of, not feeling too good, and
if we decided to do something,
if I decided to do something, there, what would be the best point to do it? And I was actually given an answer with the highest point, and what the highest point would be, which is it's interesting to think, that it's an informative app like that would give you that type of information, but also would not flag that 2 seconds beforehand. You'd also ask it, something quite sinister,
yeah.
The interesting thing to me is that it was capable of giving a supportive answer in April when I asked it, and I have a screenshot to prove it. Maybe I can send it on, and you can post it on your social medias. To prove that it actually did give me a supportive answer. So to say that the technology isn't there and it can't be used, well, just isn't true. Now it is. So now I think we have a duty of care to revert back to the supportive answer. And I suppose there's a reach out to the Cliffs Moher, an invitation to come in and discuss this topic, either with me or the general public. In any case, I think the invitation is there that to invite the Cliffs Moher management or Clare County Council to actually interact with this conversation would be really helpful. But the technology is there and it can be used.
Robin, isn't it sad to think, Robin, that on the week that you asked the question and you got the appropriate answer, that somebody else could have asked that question that week and got the appropriate answer, but somebody the following week might have not been so lucky,
Yeah, exactly. And at the end of the day, like I said, I think we're just merely custodians for that location. People want to visit it because it's beautiful. It's a fantastic location, and even the visitor center is amazing. What they provide there is really gorgeous, and there's a really lovely feeling up there. But at the same time, it just so happens that there's a visitor center there. So we're just merely custodians that we have to do better. And why I'm focusing on the Cliffs Moher, and it's purely because there's a really amazing opportunity in this, that we could build as a community. We could build a safety only app, and it has been built. There's an app, and I might have talked about it the last time I was on, called Galway Safe. It's available on Android on the Play Store. And that app actually utilizes geofence technology in Galway on the river edge. But it's a safety only feature. there's no other application in the app. So how do you get somebody to download it, and also how do you get somebody to engage with it? So the idea to make it bigger and more widespread is to test it at a tourist site where there is 1.5 million visitors, and a percentage of those people, unfortunately, will be struggling. But fortunately for them, we can provide the support through technology. And like I said, if it means just showing up in a more powerful way, then we need to show up for each other in a more powerful way. And this is it.
Yeah, I don't think you can put it any better than that, really, can you?
And what does it take, Robin? Does it just take someone in a position of power to, I suppose, have the courage or the bravery to push this along? Or is it like a collective thing, or does it go to, like a committee? Is that what's the process of, getting this in front of somebody?
Okay, so I was lucky enough to get in front of Cliffs Moher management. It wasn't the general manager or their board, which are the people that I would like to get in front of. But again, it's I think getting it. You asked the question, who is responsible for making this happen? Honestly, I don't know. But I suppose it's the Cliffs Moher management would be the people that I would say could just make it happen. They integrated a AI chatbot on their website.
Yeah.
That chatbot has made the answer that is support. They gave the answer that is supportive in terms of suicide and mental health. So they can do it again at the very minimum. They should be able to do that again, which is great. And at a higher level, I think they can do more. So I would say Cliffs Moher Management and Clare County Council. As a community, though, I think the biggest and most important thing is that we start talking about this in a more open, honest, and transparent way. Like I have to say that I share my mental health experience, and I shared it on the last episode with you guys. And I do that at a tremendous cost myself. That my own mental health does suffer up and down because I've chosen to do it, but I choose to do it to help others, because I know that I can whatever feelings I have after or before any of these interactions, I can get through. But I do it because I know the lived experience of being in a dark place and being suicidal. So I'm doing it to better the rest of society. And I hope that the rest of our community and the rest of society can actually engage in this conversation and get to a better place. I don't know if there's anything else I want to say, but if you have some questions before we go, because I'd say we are coming up to time. I don't know.
Look, Robin, I think everything that stems from this conversation today is stemming from, like what you mentioned, a want and a willingness to educate the community around you of something that may or may not fall within their pathway at some stage in their life. And to be able to, like you said, rally a community together to put the bare minimum amount of support in place that could be possibly utilised by them, their loved ones, or their colleagues, or a tourist.
And built upon.
Yeah, and built upon is something that I think is, amazing that these type of platforms can be used to help that. And I know myself and Key had the conversation before you came on this week when we said, look, we're going to build upon the conversation that we had the last time. And that is just another brick or another step along a path that, will eventually lead to something, I think, beautiful, and something that will, eventually save somebody's life. And I think, you don't put yourself, like you mentioned, out there to reap any reward from this. You know, this is something that you know, have skin in the game about. So you know the effects of how, you know, somebody dealing with it directly can be feeling and how somebody indirectly could be feeling in regards to this. So for you to be able to utilize us and utilize newspapers, like utilize any type of you know, platform to try and rally up any type of support on this, I think is something that we will support you in going forward, because I know that it's something close to your heart, Keith, and it's definitely something close to me as well.
100%. I just wanted to add in just a small thing as well. I know you mentioned that it was more of a personal thing to you, but it's also professional as well. Obviously, being a member of the Garda Síochána, you would come across, you know, suicide and people taking their lives on the weekly, I suppose. And my dad is part of the fire brigade as well, Dublin Fire Brigade. So he would come across these situations. Now, obviously not to clip the motor, but like other hotspots within his local area. And, you know, anything like this that can be done could relieve, you know, the burden that you have to hold as well, you know?
Yeah, like while you know emergency services do go to these emergency calls and people when they're in crisis, sometimes it's a guard or a fire service that attend them first. But again, I won't labor too much on, I suppose, my experience within the organization.
Yeah.
What I will say is that no matter whether it's a person in the emergency services, a person in the HSE, a friend, a family member, somebody in the community that, you know, is out there helping and they have intervened in somebody taking their own life, it it's really, really difficult. It can be really difficult for everybody involved. But again, opening up the conversation in a more honest and transparent way will help. Because I was talking to the HSE
Yeah.
representatives down in Clare before I came on here and before I started talking to media again, just to see what their take on it was. And both the Samaritans and the HSE and actually Mental Health First Aid Ireland, their stance and professional view is that talking about it is better than not talking about it. So every time you can have that conversation, even though it's uncomfortable, ask the question if there's red flags there for anybody that you know that you're noticing. Um, Ask it. What's the worst that can happen? Are you thinking about suicide? You know, the worst that can happen is, geez, no, I'm not. That's going to be, if that's
Yeah.
the case, great. Thanks so much. Thanks. You know, I'm here to support you in other ways. And there's ways to have this conversation. And there's lots of training out there. Um, but everybody should be able to ask that question. And both the HSE and the Samaritans and the professionals in this area, in this arena, are saying that it is a conversation that we need to have. Um, and particularly at frequently used locations like the Cliffs of Moher and Limerick. Actually, I might say that Limerick do a really positive, um, a lot of positive community work. They've got a community patrol nightly, every single night in Limerick City on the river edge. There's a patrol where members of the public come along, give their time, and are are trained professionals in suicide intervention and prevention, and they prevent an awful lot. And they don't hide away from the fact that the bridge and the river edge is a frequently used location down in Limerick. The River Shannon is one of those frequently used locations. And again, when we talk about, okay, so any location, what we want is somebody to have the support no matter what location they're in, whether they're at a river edge, cliff edge, in their home, you know, any particular location where somebody might choose to take their life. Technology is always going to be there now that it is in our pockets. This support can be there with anybody. And to open up the question, when a person, a face-to-face person isn't there, we can still open up that conversation for the person when we recognize that they're at a cliff edge, at a river edge, they're stationary for more than 5 minutes, we can push a notification onto their phone. How are you feeling? Give them a traffic light situation. Green, I'm good. Amber, I need to reach out to a friend or family. Or red, I need emergency services. And at the start of this journey, and before I go, at the start of this journey, when I was talking about it, it felt like it was more of a charity or an NGO that's where it should have been placed, because we're talking about mental health. But what I've
Yeah.
learned is, because tech solutions are very, very expensive, that there isn't that kind of funding available in the NGO sector in Ireland. Plus,
Okay.
NGOs struggle year on year to make sure that they have the funding to keep going with their project next year or for the next 5 years, let's say. And I think for a project like this, or for an enterprise like this, it's quite a precarious situation to be in, that if you're providing a solution of support, then you can't leave the person without support just because of funding. So that's why we're investigating a more private enterprise solution, that if you build the business around a wellness business around it, then we can provide a more robust mental health support for everyone. And that's why we try to explain it, that it's more akin to those physical wellness apps that we're very used to now, like Strava or Fitbit,
Yeah.
but more for your mental health. So the idea is, the bigger picture is that when we have an app up and running, that there will be geofence locations, not just at a cliff edge or a river edge, that there will be geofences in every town, city, or location where there might be wellness tourism or wellness industry. You put in your demographics. For myself, I'm a male, 42, I have a young family, and then my interest then would be, say, healthy eating, outdoor activities, family-orientated activities when I'm out and about. And then we can
Yeah.
use it as an advertising platform for wellness, so that every time you engage with it, you're getting the things that make you feel good, that are engaging with your family, your friends, and you're going out there increasing your wellness each time you use it. And you can set up the app then to ask you at regular intervals, whether it's, you can set it up to be daily, weekly, or bi-weekly. How are you feeling? So then you track how you're feeling, and the activities that make you feel good, the app is then tracking those, that to increase your wellness on a daily, monthly, weekly, yearly basis. Because again, if you're increasing your wellness and your mental health wellness on a daily basis, you're less likely to end up in crisis. And again, those supports will be there. Those mental health supports will be there in the background as an option also. And if we have an app that operates like that, we're more comfortable about it, we can keep ourselves in a better space, and then we can open up the
Yeah.
conversation in a better way for our loved ones. So again, big picture, it's a support for everybody, everywhere. The very niche support is, and really, really most important support is, that there is support there for somebody when they're struggling and might be suicidal.
Yeah. Well, I hope this podcast and this chat and this conversation that we've opened up again now helps gain some sort of traction for yourself and the idea going forward, and maybe opens up a few conversations with people in the local area that might help boost it and move it along as well. And then hopefully myself and Keith and other people around the country who also listen to it might see something similar down the line that spreads right across Ireland. And listen, Robin, we want to thank you for taking the time again to share all this information. It's been a late one here tonight. We've had a few technical issues trying to get you on this evening, but
Worth the wait.
it was worth the wait, and we got there in the end. And we just want to wish you well, you, your family, everyone else. And we look forward to linking back in with you again, hopefully with more better news down the line.
Thanks so much, lads. Take care.
Cheers, Rob. Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it. Thanks.
Right, big thank you to Robin for taking the time to share that information and jump on the podcast again. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, look, lots of valuable information there. Like in our eyes, it's a no-brainer. It's something that needs to be done, and he's got our full support. And like anyone else in his circles, everyone's going to get behind him.
Yeah, 100%. And look, like we always say on these type of episodes, there will be support and guidance on the show notes and pointing people towards organizations that can help if you've been listening to this episode and feel like you need to reach out to somebody.
Yeah.
Also, big thank you to our sponsor, Robus Lighting, the world's leading LED lighting company, for facilitating this interview and allowing us to record in their headquarters in Dublin, Ireland.
And as we always do, we'd like to thank Snickers Workwear Ireland and Velocity Pro Gear for their continued support of the podcast.
If this episode is something that you've enjoyed listening to or have gained any information from, make sure you head over to wherever you get your podcast, give us a follow, and you'll be notified when the next one drops. Take it easy.
Talk to you again.